are really excited about the next panel, which is the International Chamber of Commerce. And our panelist moderator is Dr. Dana Palmer. Our excitement comes from the fact that this conversation will extend upon the Chamber of Commerce conversation. Dr. Palmer is... Hi, Dr. Palmer, can you unmute, please? Okay, Dr. Palmer, can you unmute? All righty, well, we're going to move forward until she gets here. We're excited and thrilled about this guest speaker. This is a powerhouse, Dr. MelidaHarris Barrow. She is the chairman and founder of the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce. Hi, Dr. Melida, you have the floor. Unmute.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I am so excited about what you're doing, Loretta, and your team, because this is very important for us to have this type of conversation, but also in action. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Dr. MelidaHarris Barrow. I'm the founder and chairman of the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce. Our mission is facilitating and coordinating trade and investment, promoting cooperation for development between and within the two regions. Those 2 regions actually, well, it's more than 2 regions, but we're dealing with Africa, and we're connecting Africa with the African diaspora. We are already have a program that we're doing, and this program is called the Journey of Reconciliation of Mother Africa and her diaspora. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because, number 1, we need healing. All of us need healing in the African diaspora. And we have invited the kings and queens of Africa, from Uganda, from Nigeria, from Ghana and Congo and many places. So they are coming. We're going to have this event in Panama, Central America. Why in Panama? It's a very strategic region. It is the hub of also Latin America. So what we're doing now is that we're not just going to have this event as just a ceremony for healing, but we're having this event also to introduce Africa to the Americas, to the Caribbean, in order for us now to begin to do business with each other. So it's going to be strengthening the economic climate by providing opportunities for business owners, community leaders, and elected officials to network and development. The 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce within the Africa and the diaspora community, it is time now for us to come together and the world. Not only that, we are also connecting the indigenous people in the world to do business. I've discovered that in Panama, we have 7 indigenous people organization here as well. And one of the most important things that we are doing, you see, they have land and they cultivate, but when they cultivate to consume. So what we are doing now, the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce, we are teaching them how to cultivate and export. But this event that I'm talking about in Panama, most of us don't, in our region, believe it or not, we don't know that there is African kings and queens. If you speak to the many African people in our region, they don't know. So what we're going to do is educate one another, because Africa tends to trade mostly with whomever colonialized them. When I speak to an African brother and I speak about Latin America, it's just 2 countries, Brazil and Mexico. We have to change that. And by having this program as well is going to change that, because it's going to open the door. The reason I created the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce is because we need to create a platform, and we also need to create the bridge between Africa and us and the world. Most Africans don't know that we have a free zone. We have the 2nd largest free zone in the world. Not one African business has an office there. You have an opportunity in order to re-export here from the free zone in Panama. You don't have that information. So what the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce is doing, we're going to provide that information, not just to Africa. We need to provide that to India. We need to provide that to everyone in the world that have been oppressed and don't know the information and the opportunities in our region. And that goes for the United States as well. So the bottom line here, and the vision, because there is a vision, the vision is to support the growth and development of the continent, the African diaspora, and the indigenous people in the world. Why you might say we called it the 6th region? Because as you know, Africa has 5 regions, and the 6th region is the African diaspora. But this is something I discovered over the years, is that when we talk about the diaspora, Africans, most of the time they're talking about the diaspora that have left Africa for better opportunities. We don't talk about the diasporans of that has been displaced in this region, you understand? So what we have to do, we have to merge with each other. And when we speak about the African diaspora, that should include also the Africans that was taken from Africa for slavery. And they are all throughout the Americas. They are all throughout the Caribbean and the world. So those are the things that we're focusing on. So the bottom line here is that all the chambers that did their presentation today, we need to connect. Everyone that's here, we need to connect. The reason why is because now, for the first time in history, we are now going to have the kings and queens come and reconciliate with their brothers and sisters throughout the world. It's happening in Panama, but we are inviting the world to come in order for us to do that. And in order for us now to merge with each other, educate each other, and also we need to start doing business with each other. Because the direction that we're going right now, we are progressing. But one of the speakers say, you know, we talk and talk, but no action. So thank God that just yesterday, a week ago, the Panamanian government accepted the proposal. And all the ministers, I had a meeting yesterday with the government, and they accepted this proposal. So we have free range now in order to bring all of us together in one place. And that place is when we're going to begin to do business in Africa and vice versa. And just to end, I want to invite you all also from the Americas or wherever you may be from. I am taking a delegation of the diasporans to Ghana for an event that we're having for the October 27th through the 31st. And that is going to be the launching for the kings and queens coming to Panama. And I will be the one to also, I propose to them, we also have to have a business engagement with our brothers and sisters in Africa, because we're coming from the diaspora. So now that's the beginning of the connection of our brothers and sisters in our region and in their region. So we're ready, we're in action, and we want to work with you, and we would like for you to work with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Melida. I have a question for you. Can you
Yes.
further expound upon the direction of the 6th region Chamber of Commerce and why it's important that chambers and businesses participate with your particular chamber?
The chamber that was created is the platform. Actually, it's going to be the platform in our region in order for other regions, other countries in Africa to connect with us. And also, because what I've recognized is that we have a hard time in our region, and that's the Americas and the Caribbean, to connect with Africa. We having a very difficult time to even knock the door to Ghana, knock the door to Nigeria, because people tend to always want someone to guide them through those regions. And I'm finding the same thing as well, that Africans are having a difficulty coming to our region. The first thing they say is the language. I want to say there's interpreters, everybody coming from the world doing business in Panama. But the most important thing, and why is it important for the chambers now to come together, because we can provide information from each other. So that's why I created that platform. It is a platform, it is a bridge to bring us together. I think that's the importance of why I created the chamber.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions or comments you want to leave to our guests? Do we have any additional questions, comments, concerns? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Melida. And the wonderful thing is, you can find her definitely on LinkedIn, and she will place her information, and she has already, in the chat, so we can reach out and speak with her at any given time. And thank you so much, because we know you're in Panama right now, ready for a very important meeting, but you called me early this morning to make sure you could get on here. Thank you, darling. Thank you so very much. All righty.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Our next guest, we're really excited about our next guest. He is coming to us from Ghana, Mr. Martin Awagah. I'm hoping I'm saying that close to right. But Martin is...
It is Kwame.
Okay.
It is Kwame Awagah.
Yeah. Okay. He is an economist, and we're excited to hear about the economic and financial relationship that he wants to present to this discourse. Floor is all yours, Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Loretta, for this opportunity. And as a brief introduction, I would like to, you did not really do justice to that. So let me just introduce myself.
Absolutely. That's why I did, because I wanted you to.
Thank you. So Martin Kwame Awagah is my name. I'm an economist and financial analyst with 10 years experience in economic research, governance, public policy, financial inclusion, international development, and project management. Presently, I am the lead consultant and director of the firm Howell Limited, which is a performance improvement consultancy and sustainable solutions management company located, or which has operations in Ghana. We have an office here in Ghana, and then the Caribbean in Grenada, where we work on fintech, which is financial technologies and financial inclusion advisory services, public financial management, project management, and business development. So as a passionate professional on the potentialities of financial technologies, I'm actually going to talk about financial technologies post COVID-19, how this is, leading the way in financial inclusion and access for Africans and the diaspora. So we're going to delve into that briefly, and then after, I'll take all your questions and solutions. So, but before I get onto that, I would like to just have, I want to contribute a little to what Dr. Harris Barrow just said about the Sixth region. And I would say that, you know, I've known that lady since the days of State of the African Diaspora. And so I'm taking you on your word. And so what I'm going to do is I'm also going to give you some proposals, present to you some proposals in which we can be able to work and link particularly the Caribbean and then the African region together, because, and even extend further into the Latin America and Central America, because if you watch the terrain, there is absolutely no trade and business between those two these two entities. And so Dr. Harris Barrow, so I'll get to you after this call. And so coming back to, you know, giving an intro about myself, I have contributed immensely at various local international fora. And I introduced the Ghana FinTech Outlook project, which is currently running every year to educate and disseminate information on the benefits of a digitally inclusive economy, amongst other technologically driven projects that I am currently spearheading. You know, what is necessary is for us to know that, you know, the tipping point in any time that there's a disruption in the global economy, changes are bound to happen. And so particularly with COVID, what happened during the lockdown, or what we are currently seeing, or what has been the norm now, is that countries within the Caribbean and Africa particularly are now moving into the digital space, whereby we are burdened now with the introduction of, you know, remote work and all of that. And that basically would hitherto affect the way we transact business, particularly our financial transactions and all that. And so what we are seeing in Ghana or in Africa, particularly in the biggest four markets, is the fact that countries in, you know, countries like Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, which is also one of the biggest players in the fintech ecosystem in Ghana, in Africa, sorry, and also Egypt are leading the charge, particularly ensuring that, you know, the mass unbanked population that we have, which is actually about 66% in sub-Saharan Africa, provides some leverage and some level of opportunity for us to actually, as a chamber, this goes to you, Loretta, as a chamber at Pan-African Chamber of Commerce, see ways in which you can actually collaborate, because there's a lot of fintechs, there's a lot of these technologies, or let me say tech startups and companies that are actually disrupting business models across the continent. We can look at ways of, you know, collaborating with them and partnering them in order to you know, reach the last mile, because, you know, a lot of basically what we have noticed that the banks have not been able to achieve over the past couple of years or decades that they've been operating is that they cannot actually reach the last mile. But just imagine when DFID in UK decided to do a research, undertake a research in Kenya, and which led to the introduction of M-Pesa in 2007. If we look at that trajectory from 2007 and how mobile money has transformed and has been able to, you know, change the landscape when it comes to reaching the last mile and you know, bringing people into the banking sector, or being able to, you know, have mobile telephony systems that can actually get to them, it's quite overwhelming. And in as much as that is the case, a lot more needs to be done, and so that is what I think COVID-19 has actually brought us, or enlightened us, to actually see ways in which we can, as a chamber, collaborate with them, work with them, and leverage on their capacities to be able to, you know, work synonymously with them to achieve, you know, financial inclusion eventually. So, I mean, one thing that actually also makes me excited about this whole digital landscape right now is the fact that, you know, during the COVID, I mean, Ghana particularly and Africa's chunk of GDP also comes from remittances. Remittances from the diaspora, from our friends and relatives out there. And so you would realize that what happens is that even that channel has now been incorporated into the tech space. And so there are innovations that are coming up, discussions are currently ongoing to be able to, you know, leverage on that opportunity to, as it were, secure some level of investment to the diasporans, so that when you are sending remittances down to Africa, what would happen? You'll be able to create some form of investment or insurance, level of insurance, so that you can also be included. So that's also financial inclusion as we are speaking about. So Loretta, I threw that challenge to you that, you know, sometimes I tend to believe that most people in the diaspora do not see the need to actually come down to Ghana, Africa, Nigeria to assist in the developmental agenda. But, you know, our government, yes, have not been able to help us achieve certain milestones. But to achieve economic empowerment, socio-economic empowerment, development, and growth, it largely depends on the private sector in job creation. So what my business or Howell Limited also does is to ensure that businesses in the diaspora that wants to invest in Africa, in Ghana, leveraging on the opportunities that have been created by the African Continental Free Trade Area. What we also do is we invite them and get them to start operating in Ghana here. I've seen somebody saying they would like to connect with me. Yes, I'll send my details after the my discussion so that you can actually get in touch. Thank you. So what we are seeing is is to ensure that, you know, our businesses, black businesses, diaspora businesses that want to enter into Africa, we also offer that service so that you can also help your brothers and sisters here in job creation, because a chunk, I mean, when you look at the statistics in US at the moment, the Biden's administration has been able to create some millions of jobs within this about 6 months in office. But in Africa, you know, the situation is dire. And in as much as we are having challenges, I think the opportunities are enormous. And so, Loretta, I'd like to end here. And then if there are any questions from the audiences with regards to what I have put out or churned out, they can get in touch, or they can actually ask those questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martin. And I love the idea you put out a challenge. One of the things we want to do with this conference, which is uniquely different from other conferences, is this is the start of conversation, not a conclusion. So what is happening here is we're encouraging all to connect with one another, and let's start the second phase of implementing some of these thoughts, concepts, and designs to create change. One of the things I like to share is that 100 years ago, Marcus Garvey did not have technology, but yet he filled up Madison Square Garden with a conference. Had 1 million members. With no technology and threats from the government. And we know how America was 100 years ago. Yeah. So yeah, I accept that challenge. This is a conversation that will be going forward. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns that anyone? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a comment. I just want to reinforce the need for fintech. We were able to partner with Customers Bank, one of the top 5 PP lenders in the country, and that is one of the things that the bank used fintech, which has helped a seamless process, because a lot of times when you're dealing with banking, it's hard to upload the documents. The system was so great that our members were saying, boy, this is the easiest I've ever applied for a loan. So I have to endorse what he's saying about the use of technology to aid us globally in Pan-African community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Phil. Any other comments, concerns, statements? Wonderful. Well, thank you so very much. My panelists, thank you so very much. It's extremely powerful. We do have two other panelists. I don't see them on, and I'm looking for them. Okay. All righty. Well, if you are a panelist for the International Chamber of Commerce, if you would kind of just like raise your hand. So maybe I overlooked you. I don't want to overlook anyone. All right. And if they do come on, we'll bring them on at the end of the session, possibly, and let them chat. Or the wonderful thing is we are inviting our panelists to present a paper that we want to edit and publish. So if they're not able to present, we'll be able to put them in some kind of print format, digital print format. So we're really excited about that. Well, our next, this is going to tie it all together, the corporate alliance. How will the corporate alliance create all this a growth and understanding for all this information that has been distributed and presented? And I'd like to present to you a very dear friend of mine. He helped me to found the Caribbean Professional Business Association that is on LinkedIn as well. So you can reach out to that. And they are a community sponsor, Mr. Kevin Howell, and he is president and CEO of Anchor Group. Kevin, the floor is all yours.
Thanks very much, Loretto. For a quick minute, my head starts to kind of go crazy. This has been really, really great so far, Loretto, and as always, it's always good working with you and just your visionary approach to creating roads where roads haven't been, or moving the bushes in places where roads once were, and we forgot that those roads still exist. And so I am really excited to be engaging with this panel. I know we had some discussions earlier, and one of the questions for me is, what is it that you want us to cover in this corporate alliance panel? And as the moderator, I have the task of working with Miss Lorlett Hudson. And I don't know if Michael is on, Michael Gordon. I don't think he's on, but so I think Lorlett and I are going to spend some time just touching on the importance of corporate alliances. And this activity that we're engaged with here is really a impression of what alliances could look like, right? I am Kevin Howell. I am the CEO and president of the Anchor Group. We are a strategic consulting firm here in New York. We've been around for 13 years. We work with companies in the Caribbean and also companies here in the US. We've done a fair bit of work alongside the healthcare space, and that's an interesting market, especially as you see long-term care, community healthcare is very, very big, and it's a place where I don't see a lot of Black and minorities working in across the kind of full spectrum of what minority and Black people in this country are. And so I would really encourage that we look on that space as one which we start to own businesses in that area. Earlier, somebody mentioned the idea of traction, right? And the importance of traction. And when you're trying to get investors' money, investors are looking at, what have you done lately? How has your business grown? And who are you targeting? And in the US, we have a lot of like connections and resources with investment just because of how our market is. But when you get into the Caribbean, you get into Africa, and you get into specifically Black and brown communities, that access is not as accessible and so one of the things that we want to do on this session is to look at corporate alliance from the vantage point of competitive advantage, right? Because really, that's what corporate alliance is. And in my business, we've been able to use alliances to move our business ahead faster than we would have been able to do if we didn't partner. And oftentimes people are afraid of alliances, and for many reasons, right? And so today we are going to be speaking about what are the benefits of alliances, and then we're going to be looking at topics such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, access to Black power, and better yet, access to empowerment, what that looks at, because power and empowerment are two different things. And so we want to be able to kind of connect that conversation around those two variables. And then access to capital, right? And power and empowerment coming from that. And then think a little bit about think global and position for global connectivity. And many of the conversations that have gone forth just earlier really have blended the idea of global marketplace, global connectivity, and using technology as the bridge to make that possible. So I want to introduce our first speaker today, and her name is Miss Lorlett Hudson. Lorlett is a specialist in executive leadership and transitional coaching. She founded the organization One Hand Can't Clap, and she lives in London. Lorlett is an expert in helping high-achieving African Caribbean senior professionals become the best possible version of themselves and building the environment that facilitates this process. Hudson repeats the saying, "You don't know what you don't know," with the approach to broadens one's perspective. With over 21 years in the fields of training, coaching, and entrepreneurship, Hudson creates results that drive revenue. And so I want to invite Lorlett Hudson to jump in and just to give us some information about what we should be doing to drive our competitive advantage through corporate alliances.
Oh, well, thank you, Kevin. You know, for me, I'm really happy to be here. And what I actually hear is, you know, the continuous conversation, you know, what is it that we don't know in terms of knowledge? And the conversation, it's global, because I go in corporations and I do work in there. And, you know, you hear this story about, you know, we are putting out adverts for Black professionals, and we can't find them. We can't find any talents, you know. And then when you direct them to where these talents are, they go, "Oh, I didn't know that." Do you know, I go into schools and I work with young people, and it's the same thing. They have no idea how corporate work. So there is a gap between education and business. And so, you know, what I looked at is really that whole idea around how people think. How do they really think and understand the difference between, you know, innovation, creativity, and taking themselves on? So what I find with a lot of leaders who are in businesses, they don't invest in developing themselves and understanding that, yeah, you know, if you are the person who create the product, you need to find somebody who's going to do the marketing. So you always find that the person who is, you know, doing all different things, and that don't enable a business to actually grow. So what's the knowledge? What is it? What is it that causes so many Black businesses to fail? And it's not because they don't have the skills, they don't have the talents. It's because they don't have the knowledge. And, you know, the conversation recently with one of my clients, she just left corporate. She's been there for a while and she decided to herself that she wants to step out. And the first thing when I met her, I asked her the question, I said, do you know, what is it going to take to grow your business? And, you know, it was about getting myself a client and make myself money. And I said, what about your personal development? You know, what is it gonna take? And it wasn't about, well, I need to develop myself in order to go to the next level. So there is a gap in understanding what it takes to really grow a sustainable business and the development of that. So we look at our competitive advantage. It's not like we're not bright. It's not like we're not talented. You know, I look at graduation ceremony and I see thousands of Black graduates every year, yet they find it very challenging to find work. And I keep on asking the question, why is that? So there is a gap there. So, you know, these students, they take themselves on, they spend thousands of pounds or dollars, you know, and educate themselves, and yet they don't know what it takes in order to really navigate themselves around the corporate space. What is it that causes this gap, this education? So I'm going to give you an example of my first contract going back 2001, 2000. I was called in to do a piece of work with 20 Black boys in schools that nobody wanted to teach, right? All the teachers chucked them outside of their class. So these young boys would turn up at school and no one wanted to teach them. So what they then become very dysfunctional in terms of, you know, they would turn up at school whenever it suits them. So schools would start at 9 and basically they would turn up at 11 or 12 o'clock because as far as they're concerned, the education space didn't suit them. So the school called me in to actually work with them to really look at what is it that caused these boys to be dysfunctional. And so when I was looking at what was missing is leadership. When I asked them, did they see themselves as leaders? You know, they all said no. So imagine that these boys, they were 13 and 14, and there was nothing that tells them that they were leaders. They were going to be leaders. Yet when I go to private school, which is fee-paying schools, and I meet boys in those schools, they've already had a vision to say, I am going to run businesses. I'm going to be head of corporations. I'm going to be the leader in organization. So what is it that causes our Black boys not to see themselves as leaders? So I decided to design a breakfast club, which enabled them to take ownership. And what that means is that they would arrive at school at 8 o'clock in the morning. And some of the issues that they have was bad timekeeping, eating unhealthy. You'd see them with about 3 or 4 donuts first thing in the morning. So can you imagine all that sugar? You know, by 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, they would be asleep. And so I really start to look at their, well, you know, their welfare. And one of the things I look at was, okay, ownership, responsibility, understanding their competitive edge. So what I actually asked them was, if you could transform the world, what would you do? I didn't ask them, you know, who you're going to be when you come up, when you grow up. If you could transform this world, what would you do? And that really shifted their mindset, their thinking. And, you know, not one of these boys, when I first started, even consider looking at their academic qualification. You know, all they did was just come into school. So I sat down with them and I bring people from outside the community to enable them to see what's possible. We can't do what we can't see. And mentoring and coaching is so important. Representation is so important. And so I work with these boys from the age of 13 to 16 to really look at what is it that was missing for them. And for me, it was representation, culture, heritage, and really understanding who they are in identity, and also inclusion as well, and the school expectations of them that they weren't going to go anywhere. What they actually see was that, you know, they would leave school and they're going to be going to prison You know, that was the pathway for them. So I look at fundamentally key skills that I was brought up on. I was given by my grandmother, you know, brought up in Jamaica, the aspirations, the connection, the community, all that was missing for the boys. So this breakfast club actually give them all of that, which enable them to have a sense of belonging and recognizing that they're part of something. So I worked with them for 3 years as, you know, to really see where they're at and work with them. And the reality of that was, you know, when they actually graduated at 16, 19 of these boys got from A to C's in their GCSEs. I don't know what the equivalent of that is in the US. But what that actually tells me that with the right structure and the right support, these young people can go on and do what they need to do. As an exit strategy, what I did with these young boys, I got them to become mentors in the school to develop their leadership skills. And, you know, they all went on and graduated and went on to university. And that was not in the equation for them. So for me, around looking at the competitive edge, if our young people don't see themselves as leaders and don't recognize what's out there for them, some of the activities I actually did as well was take them out of their postcode. And the postcode is you live in an area, you just don't venture out of it because of fear. So I took them to places like the Bank of England. I took them to the stock exchange. I really exposed them to the theater. I showed them what's possible. So I think mentoring and coaching is really important. Then after that group, I decided to work with midlifers, many individuals who are leaving corporate. Because lots of people now, they reach 40, 45, they decided to themselves, they no longer want to be in the corporate space. So I really, again, develop their skills to enable them, the leadership skills, the skills building, the gap to enable them to really understand what it takes in order to build a business, a sustainable business. And I think that's really important. So, you know, when Loretta called me, you know, for me, it's about the expansion to understand that there is a skill gap. Too many of our young people, you know, are coming out of universities and not getting the jobs that they want. Too many of our people are working in the corporate space and they're not getting promoted. You know, they're going for promotion and they're just not happening. So there is a concern for me about what is it that's stopping our people navigate themselves around the system.
Thanks, Lorlett. I have a quick question for you. So, as you think about the idea of empowerment, and let's kind of take this from and you kind of started to touch on it from the vantage point of within the context of corporate, what can we do from an alliance perspective within the context of our jobs to really move ourselves through the kind of the corporate ladder or up the corporate ladder? Yeah, that is like, what can we do to move ourselves up the corporate ladder? So now we've done our university, we have our master's degree, but we are stuck. How do we expand our purviews to really shift and change our reach and our scope, as it were?
Great. I'm not going to answer that question. I'll get Jackie to answer it. She's a client of mine. She just stepped out of corporate. She's been working with me for 3 months. I think it'd be great to hear her story.
Is Jackie here?
Yeah, she's on.
Hey everybody, thank you, Lorlett. Thank you, Kevin. Hi everybody, I'm really pleased to be here. So as Lorlett explained, I was the one who has spent pretty much most of my career in corporate, particularly the last 10 years. I work in data protection, governance, risk management, and also have a HR qualification. So my personal story was that last year, following the tragic murder of George Floyd and the worldwide Black Lives Matter movement, I paused and really reflected on what my aspirations were. I'd climbed a ladder to a senior role within the corporate world, was really proud of getting there, was working, I was paid to work a 40-hour week. I was probably working a 60-hour week, and realizing that as much as I was being patted on the head, as it were, and recognized for my efforts, in terms of me climbing that ladder even further to senior executive level, it wasn't happening. And the murder of George Floyd was a real moment of awakening for me. I went into work, we were all working from home because we were during the pandemic. And I felt that nothing had changed as far as my organization and its goals and its intentions and its treatment in terms of the diversity of its employees and the staff. Nothing had changed, yet I didn't feel the same. So I made the decision that I wanted to build something to create some kind of legacy for myself and for my children as well. I've got 2 daughters who are teenagers, and as much as I strongly emphasize the importance of their education, in their ability to clearly communicate and to be successful, I realized that although I had attained a dream that wasn't a reality, if that makes sense, I'd strive towards something. But when it came down to the issue of the community and gender equality, I wasn't being fulfilled any further. So I decided to start my own business, and I went for the areas that I'm most experienced in, which is governance, regulatory compliance, all of the boring tick box stuff. So I looked around on Black business directories here in the UK, and I couldn't find anybody working within these areas. And I thought, these are fundamental and crucial areas to support the sustainability of any business, whether it's small or large. And there wasn't anybody in our community that was focusing on that. So that was the area that I decided to go into. And I took advantage of LinkedIn, as everybody did during the pandemic, and started reaching out and meeting people, and randomly came across Lorlett. And through our initial conversations, it made it very clear to me that I had almost been conditioned to working within the corporate world, putting this mask on, going to work, doing my hours, working above and beyond, and never quite feeling recognized or equal, let's say, to my peers who just seemed to be aspiring up this ladder far quicker than I was. And it was through these conversations with Lorlett that not after a long period of time, I decided to actually engage her as my coach, because I realized there's another skill set that is focused on leadership and strong communication and appreciation for ourselves as a community, for the power that we have when we unite and empower each other. And that's what made me decide to take on Lorlett as my coach. And through this almost a miniature community that Lorlett has created with other Black professionals, some still within the corporate world, many who are establishing and growing their own businesses or have several businesses now, I realized that the importance of a support network is absolutely crucial in progressing and in reaching your goals. You need people around you to hold you to account. You need to share your knowledge with others. I know nothing about marketing. I'm not great with IT, but I know data protection, I know corporate governance. So we share our skills amongst each other. And I'm in a position now where I'm hoping to share my skills, share my knowledge as a business owner, so that these Black business owners and charitable organizations who I'm engaging with realize that, yes, it's important to do the work. Yes, it's important to have your focus and your areas of specialization, but you also need to make sure that you are compliant to the laws and the regulations of your country. These are the things that give you credibility and integrity and will attract a far wider community than just those individuals who you know that will support you in your business.
I mean, that was, go ahead, Lorlett, you want to say something?
Thank you, Jackie. I've got another colleague as well. I brought them along with me because, it's not just about me. We're doing phenomenal work in the UK, but we don't know anybody in the US. So I decided, you know, strategically to bring 2 people along with me so we can share what is it we're actually doing. Denise?
Oh, good afternoon, everybody, or morning or evening, wherever you are. And thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much, Lorlett. I'm a professional, I'm an artist. I'm actually a recovering artist. And part of the community that Jackie just so eloquently spoke about a few minutes ago. And I think that certainly from my experience, there are some of us who've been in business before over the years. And a fundamental thing that is lacking, which Jackie did pick up on, is the need for the support and to understand fundamental things like leveraging of power, which is something Lorlett speaks about a great deal, and dealing with power and the relationships that you have with power. And that means that you're more focused on what that power looks like in terms of its dynamics as opposed to the individual. Power has a presence everywhere you go. There was a conversation earlier talking about the Chinese in Africa. That situation can continually unfold, and being able to manage power in relation to your particular position and where you're coming from is really very important. And that was reflected in other conversations earlier when they spoke about women wanting to be perfect, not being able to present at the level and be themselves, and having to wear a mask. Those are all things that mask your actual personal power. And what has been very interesting is that Lorlett has focused a great deal on using very old wisdom in relation to power. And that is the power of proverbs, which people in the Caribbean are very familiar with, and other people have their own manifestation of proverbs across their specific culture. But those proverbs show you how to deal with issues of power, show you how to survive. And that has really been the core of, been really at the core of One Hand Can't Clap itself, a proverb that many people would recognize. So just to really add to what Jackie has said, having a community where there's a parallel level of support, people on different journeys, different stages of those journeys, having a safe space to speak about business is very important. Business is done over dinner. Other communities have different ways of engaging and supporting each other doing business. Sometimes we think that business support is a formal engagement done only in an office. But when people meet to have a meal, a lot of the times they're talking about business issues. And we sometimes forget there's different ways to engage and to support each other in business. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. So there you go, Kevin. I don't have to do the work. You know, you get other people to do the work. That's leadership. You develop your people to enable them to be effective. And, you know, quite often in Black businesses, what we get is it appears that we're not working together. This is the demonstration that we do work together.
I think that is an interesting approach to the delivery of your segment, Lorlett, and really building leadership is the kind of center of our success, and it will be the center of our success as Black businesses and minority businesses in the US, in the Caribbean, in Africa, wherever we are. And networks, the power to be able to understand that I do not know and to seek those resources, to partner with those resources that know, becomes important. I think sometimes though we are threatened by the fact that of what is it that I present to a potential strategic partner, a potential strategic alliance. How much information do I give? How much information do I provide? Will this individual or this company or this organization try to take away my idea? And we are enamored with the fear of losing. And as a result of that fear, we oftentimes do not become better, right? And I think for the last part of our segment, we just want to talk a little bit about how you go about building a proper strategic alliance. Because everything that we're talking about here today is really, really neat. But until we can come to acceptance to the truth of, yes, on the one end, you have friendship, and you want friendship to be a part of every business relationship, right? And when you leave corporate, Jackie, and say, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be in an environment where I can be valued. I want to be in an environment where I can determine what happens to me. I want to be in an environment where I build legacy. Oftentimes, you are kind of put in a place where you have to start thinking, how do you do that? How do you create that world? Who do you do it with? And that's not always as easy because we weren't, as a people, given the free rein to be comfortable with negotiations. We weren't given the free rein to be comfortable with asking for what we are worth. It says you shouldn't blow your own horn, right? You shouldn't blow your own trumpet. Don't say anything. Let somebody else. Self-praise is no recommendation. Going to the Proverbs, Lorlett. And we were covered with that entire kind of mindset. So our representation growing up as minority people has always been, or in most cases been, around the place of lack, around the place of not enough. Around the place is, I only have one slice of bread, and that one slice of bread is only for me. I can't give it to anybody else. And the expansive transformational thinking that is going to be a part of our shift is more than financial resources. It's more than technology. It's more than your ability to think and to create. It really is going to be connected to us kind of training ourselves.
Change our mindset.
It's a mindset shift. Exactly. Yeah. And so we want to talk a little bit about building corporate alliances. And you could jump in, any one of you. How do we go about building alliances? How do we go about building networks that last and that are sustainable?
Okay, I can say that. You know, it's about managing risk. It's about trusting people. You know, I mean, I have known Denise now since, over 25, 26 years, and we work very closely together. You know, I mean, there's people, you know, you just have to recognize that we're not all perfect. You know, there's breakdowns and, you know, relationship, whether it's in a marriage or friendship or corporate or teams, you know, it's really understanding what is it going to take to be sustainable. And I think one of these personal development guru, he actually said, you know, if you find yourself in a room and there's 9 people in that room who's broke, well, you better come out of that room, because number 10, you're going to be number 10, the broke one. So all my clients I coach, you know, I said, you've got to surround yourself with the right people. And what we do in our forums is continuous development. It's continuously, you know, putting ourselves out there. You know, we don't always agree, but that thing around recognizing, and I must stand for that, which is inclusive leadership. You know, we got to really work with each other. I'm not saying it's easy, but we have to do the work. If we want to work sustainable businesses, we've got to put the work in, put the work to work, and take out the emotions. And as you rightly said, that thing about lack, if we don't transform the way we do businesses, it's going to be more of the same.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on 5 quick points. I see, Denise, you're fixing your camera as if you wanted to contribute to this part. Go ahead, Denise, before I give my 5 bits.
Yeah, just to add to what Lorlett said, I can give you an example of a situation some years ago. And another colleague had a business idea which required venture capital. And he went to the meeting and there were two of us there. And the idea really had potential. In fact, it has since been developed. It's on the market. But at the time when he spoke about it, it was very new. When we went to that meeting, the person we were speaking to was the sort of initial filter. And he listened intently. And he then said he couldn't go any further, not because the concept wasn't good, not because the finance wasn't good, not because the marketing strategy wasn't good. What he was concerned about was that the founder was the founder. It was only one person. And the risk to put your money in a concept which has one person is too risky. No one's going to do that. We learned that day that we could never move. That was such a lesson, because if that had actually succeeded, it would have been transformational for a lot of people. We had to then develop a different concept. And the concept was that as individual business owners, if anybody was ever presented with that concept or that idea again, we as individual people would turn up to be representatives of that person's board, because what the investors wanted to see was not one of that individual special unique founder, but a team of people of equitable ability. And so that was the model that we had. So if anyone had any sort of contract meeting to go to, we would call each other up, and then we would pose as each other's members of teams of staff in order to ensure that there was more equity across the board in terms of securing contracts. And to a certain extent, it worked. Notwithstanding, we are in the UK and sort of the endemic situation we're dealing with, where there was equity, it was successful. And so that construct has continued. And so very much what Lorlett talks about in terms of the forum is about drawing on that expertise, because if you want to grow, if you want a sole trading business, it's fine. And you can go a particular distance. If you want to move, if you really want to grow, you cannot do it without equitable partners and knowledge at a level that you can't acquire because it's not your speciality. So I think, and that's really building on what Lorlett said. If you really want to grow, you just have to. It's not, do I collaborate? It's how. There's no if about it, because you simply can't move if you don't do it. And I think if you face that, then you start focusing on how can I do this, not if. There's no if in it.
Thanks. Thanks much. And so that was makes sense, and it segues nicely in these 5 points. So really understanding your asset is the biggest thing. Is that what is it that you bring to the table, and being comfortable with that is going to be very important. And so all the organizations here, I know you're establishing, you're moving partnerships, you are trying to build partnerships, but it becomes challenging for you to get partners if you don't know what is it that you are. And oftentimes we go into the room and we have a sense of who we are, but that sense is not defined enough. Step back, go on a piece of paper, get a business plan done, but you have to know who you are, where is it that you're going, because otherwise nobody is going to join that journey with you, right? So that's the first step, is understanding the power. Understanding your power is understanding your asset. What is it that you bring to the table? The next thing is find common grounds with people, organizations that can help your business move forward, and at the same time their business can also move forward too, because a partnership needs to be symbiotic. It has to be where everybody's eating, right? And it doesn't mean that everybody's going to eat 50-50, right? But everybody has to eat. And so everybody needs to get their 100% off the 100% pie. And that seems like a weird math, right? But we all have our different desires, our different goals. And if you're going to go into a negotiation and an individual doesn't feel that you're getting 100% of their 100% of the pie, then it becomes a problem. So if this person needs to get 30% and their vision is 30%, then they need to get that, otherwise it's going to be a problem. So as negotiators and as business builders, we have to figure out, how do we negotiate? How do we navigate, right? Nobody gets everything. And that's hard to grapple with sometimes. Understand differences. And sometimes, and I know that's where Lorlett started today, the whole idea of these young men, they were different, not because they were bad, not because they never had the ability to grow. They never had a representation. They never had a perspective. And as a result, their behavior was a particular way. And Miss Hudson was able to help to shift that behavior, right? And they now went to university because she spent time to understand who they are. And in strategic relationships, you're going to be having to partner with Black, white, different races, different sexual orientation, different everything. And you need to be able to understand people's differences to learn how to navigate and to make those relationships strong enough, right? And then fortify handshake with legal documentation. We tend to say, I've heard people say, I've had a business partner before and the business partner screwed me. Or I had a business partner before and the business partner died and then his family screwed me. The reality is that that business partner wouldn't have screwed you, but guess what? His family did, because his family don't know you from Adams or Eve. His family don't care about who you are. His family don't have a history with you. So unless you fortify your relationships with legal documentation, you're fooling yourself. So whether it be a memorandum of understanding, your NDAs, your teaming agreements, your strategic contracting, you have to get. And Black and brown businesses oftentimes don't feel that it's necessary. You are my friend. You are my cousin. You are my auntie. Why am I going to sign that paper with you? Sign it. I mean, because at the end of the day, things happen. I see a hand up.
She's clapping.
Oh, she's clapping. Oh, that was a clap. All right. The next thing is have clear goals about your relationship. Have proper KPIs, key performance indicator. How do you know the relationship is working or not? And if it's not working, how do you fix it? And if it can't be fixed, how do you get rid of it? And it seems harsh because as we journey through our entrepreneurial space, we tend to want to believe that because somebody was with you in day one, that person needs to be with you in the business in day 10. But some people, some relationships are but for a season. Some relationships will be for a lifetime. And that's the timeline around those relationships are connected to as long as it is making sense about party in that relationship. And businesses have to understand that relationships need to produce. If it's not producing, we can be friends, but we can't be business partners. And those are hard things for our community, because in our mind, we feel that our brother is cutting our throat. Now that he's better than me, now that he has another contract, now that things is going right for him. I was with him when he was nothing. I was with her when she was nothing. We understand that. And I'm not suggesting that the separation be violent and be in negative kind of energy. I'm just suggesting that you need to track. And if you track and monitor, then you can identify issues as they come. If you identify issues as they come, you can address them. If they're addressed, good to go. If they're not being addressed, you reinforce the importance of them being addressed. If they're not being addressed, then the next step is it is not working out. And I'm not saying it is 1 day, it's 2 days, it's 2 years, it's 3 years. You need to understand your relationship. You need to understand the balance in your relationships. But overall, if we can't understand our value, if we can't find common ground, understand our differences, legalize our relationship, mapping our KPIs and the reason why we're in a relationship, and track and communicate, and where necessary, refresh that relationship. Every relationship needs a little candlelight night out from time to time. Refresh those relationships. And we believe that if you do those things, then corporate alliances will become stronger. And Black and brown communities, minorities across the world will do so much better because we're powerful, we're talented, we are amazing, but oftentimes we lack the knowledge and the willingness
to do the work.
To do the work.
Let me drop two proverbs on you before I stop. If you can't hear, you will feel. Puss and dog don't have the same luck. Sometimes you have to walk around the barricades. I'll leave you with that one.
Sometimes, because the walking around is what makes it. It's the experience. And sometimes we want to rush up the mountaintop. But if you rush up the mountaintop, you lose all of the scenery and all of the experiences. And guess what? When you get to the mountaintop, you're tired. So we want to ensure that when we get to the mountaintop, we are cruising to the top and we are not tired, right? So alliances does a few things. It helps you to share your risk. It helps you to create economies of scale. It helps you to access technology and resources that you don't have the money to buy, right?
That's right.
And it helps you to access new markets, right? New markets. And we talk about Africa to the Caribbean and to Latin America and the Caribbean to Africa. And we talk about India, like partnerships, alliances are going to help us to access new markets and to make us bigger than who we truly are. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much. What a powerful, powerful presentation. And I'm really excited about this conversation. It just culminated everything that has been discussed throughout the day. And I'm just so very, 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 very excited about that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.